Good evening. My name is Steve Brennan. Thank you for joining us again tonight. As you can see, I'm joined by Nicole Zelen. She is the Democratic candidate that is running in District 1 for a supervisor position. Hi, Nicole. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity to chat about my campaign.
Awesome. Well, I'll say my spiel that I say before all of these. I haven't had any prior conversations with the candidates regarding these interviews. Each conversation is limited to 25 or 30 minutes. And the full recording will be presented to the public in its entirety without any edits. And with that said, let me give you a chance to introduce yourself, Nicole.
Yeah. Hello. I'm Nicole Zelen. I am running for West Deer Township Board of Supervisors, the District 1 seat. I am a first-time homeowner. I bought my house in West Deer in 2022. I grew up in Hampton, also in Gibsonia, about a stone's throw away from West Deer Township. When my parents bought their house, there was a field across the street. It was a really nice area to go for walks. But over the years, uh, their neck of the woods has become a lot busier. So that field has been replaced by houses.
Hmm.
Their road is sometimes a drag racing strip. It's very noisy, very crowded. So I knew that when I wanted to buy a house, I wanted to stay in the area, but I love that West Deer has maintained its rural charm over the years. So this is the perfect area for me. My husband and I really love being able to walk to get fresh produce. We know all of our neighbors, really, really nice place.
So
And
how
we're
long
looking
have you
forward
been in
to
the
starting
area?
a family here. Oh, sorry,
Yeah. Oh, I
Steve.
apologize for interrupting. How long
Yeah.
have you been? How long have you been in this area? And I only
So
ask because I read something that said you weren't in this area for very long. I needed to make sure I understood where you're coming from.
Yeah, of course. So it depends on what you mean by this area. Gibsonia is a pretty big zip code. It encompasses Richland Township, Hampton Township, and West Deer Township. So my current house that I bought in West Deer, I've been here since 2022. 3 miles away is where my parents live in Hampton Township, and where I grew up. So this area, I've lived in Gibsonia for over 30 years. West Deer specifically, it's been since 2022.
And you've said you know, where you grew up, a lot has changed. Talk a little bit more about that. Like, what has changed? How do you feel about the change? And what does that mean for a candidate that is running for a supervisor position here in West Deer that might have an opportunity to affect the future of what the township looks like?
Yeah, great questions. So first off, I want to start by saying that me as a candidate, it's not just about me, right? I'm running to represent all of West Deer Township, not even just District 1. So when it comes to the visions of the future that I have for this township, it's not just about me. I really want to, get some feedback from the people that live here. We need to come together and figure out what we want our township to look like in the future. Me personally, it's like I said, I moved to West Deer because it is more rural. There's more green space, there's more peace and quiet. Um, my mom jokes that she doesn't live in the suburbs anymore because their road is so crowded. Sometimes I have to wait for 5 minutes before I can pull out of their driveway. So seeing that kind of boom in development over the years definitely makes me want to preserve the green spaces and the small town feel that West Deer has. But it's important that we as a community come together and work on a comprehensive plan, a vision for the future. We need to align on what we value here. Do we want to become another Cranberry that is overdeveloped.
Sure. Yeah.
These are things that we all have to consider.
How do we all get together and have that conversation? Like how do you encourage public input into such an important thing like shaping the future?
Yeah, so Mark Schmidt was actually involved on working on the last comprehensive plan, so I've chatted with him a little bit about this. We can do things like form committees, so put out an open call to residents who want to be involved in putting that plan together. I know Josh Wigan had also mentioned resident surveys. So sending out surveys to residents to see, what's important to you about living here? What is your vision for the future? I personally would really like to involve Deer Lake students in this conversation as well. So, working with our school district, working with our school board to get students involved in what their visions for the future are.
Now, what would you say to somebody that said, "Well, these are just teenagers. Why do we put so much into their opinion about something that is seemingly so adult?"
Yeah, well, I mean, teenagers are just a few years away from being adults, and they are the future. So it's really important that we give them the opportunity to have that seat at the table. Um, I think that in the grand scheme of things, it's all of our townships. So
Hmm.
having as many different stakeholders involved in the conversation, providing those opportunities for people to get involved is really important.
Do, do you see like workshops type of thing? I've and I only bring that up. I've seen just in the last year or so the idea of these community workshops kind of cropping up again, where I hadn't seen it for a couple of years. I Are those working and are those valuable?
Yeah, definitely. I think workshops would be great. I'm also hoping that we can use some technology here. So expanding our live streaming capabilities to involve, you know, all residents, having them have the ability to participate online in a format similar to this. I think that's a really great way to get people at the table who, might have other commitments. They might have childcare duties, they
Yeah.
might be homebound. Just providing that accessibility is really important.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. You've been fighting for that type of transparency longer than I have, and I always, I do appreciate that a great deal. I mean, what was the issue with you touched on a couple things right now, but expand on that. What are a couple of things that were just kind of eating at you that made you feel like this is something we need to attack in 2025, and to the point where you were able to help facilitate change?
Yeah, so this is a cause that I've been championing for a while now, as you said.
Yeah.
I first brought it up to the board in February. And really a lot of it was there were some meetings that I wanted to go to, but I had a prior commitment, I wasn't able to get out. A couple times I was sick. And those meeting minutes, it takes a whole month for them to come out. So, decisions were being made that I wasn't able to read about for a whole month. So I did a lot of research on this. I made a ton of phone calls to different municipalities throughout the county just to see what they offer their residents. And I found out that, live streaming is a really popular, easy option.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of townships are doing a better job than we are when it comes to, posting the videos, making the live streaming link very easily accessible and allowing for virtual public comment. So, if I am elected, these are things that I would really like to expand. And if we did allow public comment, we would actually be saving about $690 annually because the webinar subscription is more expensive and it is view only. So it's a win-win in my opinion.
I heard in the primaries, I heard a candidate that is not running at this time, but they said something to the extent of, um, if you don't go to the meeting, that's on you. So the residents need to take responsibility and attend these meetings. And it's if it's not important enough to them to show up in person, then that's on them.
Mm.
And I imagine I don't want to put words in your mouth. For me, that was a tough pill to swallow, because there are a lot of people that are affected by that, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
people that can't make it for a lot of good reasons.
Right. And I will say our new municipal building, while it is a beautiful building, the meeting room is not much bigger than the old one. I've attended quite a few meetings at the old building as well as the new, where it's been basically standing room only. There have been people spilling out into the lobby.
That's a good
So
idea.
I think that providing more options for people to attend online, it's it's the common sense thing to do, in my opinion. The parking lot also gets a little hard to navigate when it's full. So, you
Yeah.
know, coming up with creative solutions to bring people to these meetings is the way to go.
You talked a little bit early on the uh, about the development that's happening in Westier, and there have been, even in recent months, a lot of larger development plans that are developers, I should say, that are interested in Westier. It's nice to have an a suburban look and feel, like you mentioned, and like others have mentioned. How do we balance that with big development? Maybe other people want to enjoy what we have, and how do you balance the development versus keeping the look and feel that we've come to enjoy?
Yeah, great question. It's a balance. That's the key. So I think having feedback from our community stakeholders, residents, experts in the area, planning commission, I think that is super important. Um, Making sure that we have ordinances that are thoughtfully tailored to Westier's needs. So things like, you know, making sure there are conditions in our ordinances so that if development does come here, the entire township is benefiting. Um, I think that these things are things that we need to think a little bit more about and prioritize when we're focusing on our zoning ordinances. I know our solicitor had mentioned that there is the potential to limit the planned residential developments within our ordinances. So I really think it needs to be a conversation of, again, with the comprehensive plan, what do we all want? What are our values and what are our goals for Westier?
Do you think there's some room for improvement there as far as getting that community input?
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely think that doing things like making it easier for people to share their feedback, things like surveys, things like using social media to our advantage, maybe expanding the newsletter a little bit. There's a lot of options that we can do that, don't have to cost a lot of money. Um, so yeah, I think it's a team effort. It's definitely worth getting everyone together and discussing.
What about things like infrastructure, like managing our roads and our parks and things like that? Are these things that you could contribute to, or I mean, is it? Do you think that your experience would hinder you on something like that?
Yeah, so I will say that professionally, my experience is in psychology. So I joke that I've used that in every job that I've ever had. And I've been in management roles as well. I currently work in marketing, and I manage a global team. So I thrive when I'm getting different people together to work towards common goals. I know that Mark Schmidt is very experienced in things like traffic impact fees. And he's mentioned that we have a lot of room for improvement there. So, kind of focusing on areas that we could be doing a little bit better with. Again, going back to putting in conditions for development. Um, I think that these are all, again, things that would be a team effort. I'm definitely not an expert on traffic or um,
Sure. No, you bring up
development,
a
but
good point. You can bring up a good point. It's a
mhm.
team effort. You have, you're it's it's not you running the township. It is a group of people putting their heads together, each with their own expertise. So that makes a lot of sense. How is your psychology? You said you use that everywhere. How can somebody with that type of a background, how does that help them in a role such as this?
Oh, yeah, great question. So I worked at an inpatient psychiatric hospital, so dealing with a lot of different people, a lot of different personalities, people when they were at very low points in their lives. And I had to work a lot of times in crisis situations. So being able to meet people where they are, being able to express empathy and respect above all, like that's something that I do across the board. And that's something that I think a board of supervisors needs. We need elected officials to be willing to listen respectfully, to engage with people, to be accessible, and to care. So those are qualities that I'm hoping to bring to the board. And to your point about the collaboration aspect of it, I am a lifelong learner, so I really like the challenge of learning new things, and anything that I don't know about, I'm willing to reach out for resources. I'm willing to read a book on it. I think that that growth mindset is definitely what makes a good supervisor.
There's going to be a lot of conflict for whoever is up there behind the dais looking at the citizens that I think I said this to one of the other candidates. Half of the people in that room, no matter what side you're on, they're going to be disagreeing with everything that you say. Is it what in a psych how can psychology help you with that type of conflict that you would have to deal with every day? Like, how do you deal with that? And sometimes that conflict isn't limited to just the constituents, but also amongst the supervisors themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, going back to my experience in an inpatient psychiatric facility, I had people screaming at me. People were upset. So being able to pause, being able to realize that we're all just trying our best,
Sure.
trying to meet people where they are and really understand where they're coming from. This the political atmosphere in the past few years has gotten pretty inflammatory, and I have loved ones across the political spectrum. So coming back to what's important, tuning out some of the noise, those are things that I've gotten pretty good at over the years.
Yeah. There's been a lot of noise lately, and maybe this is the new norm. I don't know. Um, but you've you've been a target sometimes, and that I'm sure that's been difficult. Do you feel that some of the things that were said about you were unfair?
Yeah, so honestly, I've been pretty surprised and disappointed by it all because I thought that we were all just, neighbors that wanted to run and represent our township. This is an unpaid position. Um, so I am not a negative person. I'm in this because I love our township and I want to help contribute to building a positive future. So it has felt unfair, but at the same time, I've from day one been very open and willing to engage with anyone. So my contact info is on all my flyers. My social media accounts are public. I respond to every message that I receive, and I'm more than willing to have conversations with anyone about, local issues that are relevant to our township and where I stand. Um,
That's
so
good to
at the end
hear.
of the day, oh, sorry, Steve, go ahead.
No, no, no. I was just gonna say, I sometimes I struggle getting a hold of my representatives. So
Mm.
that's good. That open communication. I
Yeah.
apologize. Continue.
No, I lost it.
So you
Sorry.
you have one of the things that I've heard a lot in the township has just had to do with our emergency services, supporting
Mhm.
our EMS, our fire departments, our police. Is that something that's a priority to you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, my husband worked in law enforcement, so I have a great respect for our police. Number one, fire department is currently not receiving the funds that voters approved. So that's in my district and very important to me. And I've recently learned that our EMS has a staffing issue right now. So if elected, I definitely want to kind of dig into these problems a little bit more and see where I could offer support.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about staffing issues with both EMS and with police around the country.
Mhm.
These
Yeah.
are just very difficult things to get people in those positions, and I
Mhm.
imagine that would be challenging. That'll be challenging in
Definitely.
2026 for whoever's up there.
Yeah, absolutely. Um,
Um, the Bear with me one second here.
mhm.
Talk real quick, maybe a little bit about budgets. How uh how does somebody at like yourself come in and be able to contribute effectively on discussions and make decisions on how Westier spends its money that it receives from the community?
Yeah, great questions. So I think that it's important that we are fiscally responsible when it comes to budgeting and spending. A couple things that come to mind are, as I mentioned, with saving costs on our Zoom subscriptions, doing things like putting things out to bid when it comes to contractors. Being smart about the decisions that we're making. So I know that they just voted to hire an architect to draw up some conceptual designs for the dog shelter. However, we haven't decided where the dog shelter will be yet.
Sure.
So
Seems
things
like
like that.
seems like we've been trying to figure that out for a long time. At least
Yeah,
throughout 2025, trying to have the same conversation.
right. And I know that Josh Wigand is very savvy when it comes to grants as well. So finding some creative solutions for different ways of funding projects, I think, is the way to go when it comes to budgeting.
You hear now you have my mind on this dog shelter. It One of the things that I've found frustrating is that there's a lot of conversations about it, and this is just one example probably of a number of things and something that you certainly would see in the future. But you have a lot of discussion about something, and it feels like every month we'll come back and we'll have this exact same discussion, and we really haven't made any improvements. We haven't really moved the ball down the field a little, as much as we need to. Is How in the world do we do we make ourselves more effective at making change, whatever the changes are, big or little, making change happen, instead of just talking about it forever and very little happening? Like, what can we do better there? How do we
Hmm.
fix that problem?
Yeah, this is a great question. I definitely don't have a specific answer.
Yeah,
I
maybe
do
there
think
isn't an
that,
answer.
well, I think that planning would help, having something like a comprehensive plan or, an overview plan of that site. When we built that new municipal building, why wasn't the dog shelter included? Knowing that the utilities were connected to the old building. So having zooming
Yeah.
out and having a more overarching idea of where we're headed, looking ahead, not just around. I think those are are some ways to solve for that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, taking it into consideration earlier so that it can be planned for, and then we're not in kind of the mess that we're in now.
Right.
That's a really good point. Well, I wanted to just kind of throw it back to you. The one last thing I wanted to talk about as far as just kind of all of this mudslinging, and I hate to even bring it up, but uh, are you? It sounds silly to even ask. Are you involved with any controversial organizations that that the public should know about?
Yeah, so thanks for asking. I've issued some statements on my Facebook page. Feel free to read. And again, I'm more than happy to chat with anyone about this. But regarding the Sunrise Movement, I met a member of the Sunrise Movement at the zoning ordinance hearing in September of 2024. This individual thanked me for speaking out against the oil and gas ordinance, which significantly decreases residents' protections. Throughout my campaign, I've been saying we really need to find a more balanced approach to this ordinance where, our residents can be protected in terms of their property value, their health, and their safety, and residents who want to make money on a lease are able to do so. So when I
And
decided to run for supervisor,
Sunrise is an environmentally centric organization
Mhm.
for climate control and preserving, um, you know, I don't know, nature and
Yeah, so
that's what I
they,
know about them, but that's all I know
Mhm.
about them.
Yeah, the young people that I've met, they help me knock doors in my district because they want to preserve green spaces. They are passionate about government transparency. They love what I was doing with pushing for live streaming in West Deer, and they support our volunteer firefighters. So there's no hidden agenda or any crazy radical business going on here. I am endorsed by individual Republicans, individual independents, individual Democrats. I'm also endorsed by the Sunrise Movement. And that doesn't mean that I identify with every single viewpoint of any of these groups. I would consider myself to be pretty moderate and pretty level-headed. So I think this demonstrates that I'm able to, find common ground with everyone and, transcend differences.
Well, I'm gonna let you have the last word here. We are, I think, as we speak, 22 days away from Election Day. So we're getting down to it. I'm sure you're going to be very busy. What do you want? Is there anything that you want us all to know about you, or to leave us with, um, before we say goodbye tonight?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you to everyone who watches. I'm just, I'm not a career politician. I am a resident wanting to represent fellow residents of West Deer. I've been, running on a platform of engagement, bringing more people to the table and bringing myself having a different perspective to the board. I'm a first-time homeowner. I'm excited to start a family in West Deer. I really think that we could use some different perspectives when it comes to the decision making that we're doing. So I would really appreciate your vote. And again, if you have any questions about me or my platform, I'm an open book. Feel free to message me. My contact info is easily available online.
Thanks, Nicole. This is Nicole Zelen. She is running on the Democratic ticket in District 1. Thanks for spending a few minutes with us. Take care.
Thanks again.
See you.